And I was down at Lee Park. Pepper spray was being sprayed by both sides, and bottles and rocks thrown. The alt-right protesters, which are a mix of all sorts of different groups, formed up around the edges of the park with shields and batons, and were blocking the park off while some of their speakers made speeches in the park. Police presence was relatively low, and they were sticking very much to the outside and not intervening in the skirmishes at all. And then at some point, riot police formed up in the park and around the outside, and some riot vehicles rolled in, and they started to push people out. But the violence carried on inside the park for a good 15 to 20 minutes after that, with the white nationalist protesters sort of holding their line and hitting counter-protesters with batons and bottles.
Emancipation Park, formerly known as Lee Park, the park that holds the statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, the center of today's controversy. If you think back to just 3 hours ago today, Boris, the first interactions we saw between protesters here were rather peaceful. We first saw armed militiamen, which was a very jarring image, march to the park, and when clergymen walked up face to face with them, they sang "This Little Light of Mine," and there was a rather peaceful interaction. But around 10 a.m., things escalated rather quickly here as white nationalist groups emerged, marching with flags and chanting hate speech, and then the violence ensued as they clashed with counter-protesters. We saw protesters pepper spraying one another, using the poles of their flags as weapons. We saw water bottles flying through the air. There were some reports of those being filled with cement. But we never saw police use force against the protesters. Once they declared this an unlawful assembly, they were able to disperse the crowd without a use of force, telling people that if they did not vacate the premises, they would be arrested. We've seen them send protesters either way, street right in the middle of downtown Charlottesville. And Jason Kessler, who was the organizer of the alt-right event Unite the Right today, he went to his Twitter Periscope feed as he left this gathering saying this is not over. He is a native of Charlottesville. He lives in Albemarle County. He says he and the people he's gathered here this weekend will be here all weekend, Boris.